أكبر لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله صلوات
اللهم صل على السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين الذي بعد فلا يرى وقرب فشهد النجوى والذي خلق السماوات والأرض بغير عمد ترونها تبارك وتعالى هو الأول والآخر وإليه المنتهى نحمده ونستعينه ونثني عليه ونؤمن به ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف بريته ومبلغ رسالاته العبد المؤيد الرسول المسدد المحمود الأحمد أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين عباد الله أوصيكم ونفسي بتقوى الله. I remind all of us to uphold the taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, especially in this month, which is the month of taqwa. In this first khutbah, I just want to remind us all of something that has been affecting the community for the past few months now, and that is the matter of death. In the past few months, of course, we all know that we've lost community members, older ones, fathers, mothers of the community, as well as, of course, the younger ones that we're all aware of, yes? And so it is a very, very, very sad phenomenon that we have to deal with, this loss of younger lives who leave us all of a sudden. It's very heartbreaking. And so I just thought that it would be good. This is a good excuse to remind ourselves, in this holy month as well, of what is to come and how close it is to us. And we didn't think it was this close until we see that which is happening around us. And it's very interesting how Imam Ali in Nahj al-Balagha, the way he explains death in and out all the time, is just different. The wording is different. The Quran reminds us of death, but this student of the Quran, Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, if you want to call him a student of the Quran, the way he words things sometimes, it's impeccable. And of course they say that these are the al-Quran al-Natiq amongst us, these imams. Anyway, I want to share part of one of his sermons. I might continue it next week as well. But just the wording that he uses, the way he looks at it and the way he wants us to look at it, I feel that is very impeccable. It says, وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ عِبَادَ اللَّهِ. So I want you to imagine, some of the sermons of Imam Ali, of course, they're not necessarily ones that he gave on a Friday, okay? But this one seems like it's one of those ones that he might have given on a Jumma, okay? Anyway, so I want you to imagine yourself being in his presence as he's speaking to us. Okay, Imam Ali, talk to us about this death. He says, وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ عِبَادَ اللَّهِ. O people, O servants of Allah, have taqwa. It's no joke. Obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, let me open a little parenthesis here. Nowadays I'm seeing that there are speakers who are making a big deal about the love of God, and that is true. We have to magnify that as much as it is magnified in our literature, the love of Allah towards us. But at the same time, this is also part of our literature, that hey, beware, be careful, okay? Sometimes you get the feeling that to magnify that, the other side, right, is belittled or undermined. No, both sides, I feel, have a very important place in our literature. Anyway, وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ عِبَادَ اللَّهِ. O servants of Allah, have taqwa. Beware of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Be careful. Beware not because He's dangerous. Your own actions are going to hurt you. And so be careful. وَبَادِرُوا آجَالَكُمْ بِأَعْمَالِكُمْ. And rush towards your ajals, your deaths. Right? Ajal is that cut-off point where something changes, something flips over, is different. Okay? Death for us is going to be that turning point in our lives. بَادِرُوا آجَالَكُمْ. Move towards your ajals and your deaths with what? بِأَعْمَالِكُمْ. With your actions. There's nothing else you should have hope in when it comes to getting closer and closer to that deadline, to that expiration date of ours, so to speak. This is the part that I really liked though. وَابْتَعُوا مَا يَبْقَى لَكُمْ بِمَا يَزُولُ عَنْكُمْ. I want to spend a little bit of time on this. And purchase, okay, attain that which is going to be persistent for you, everlasting for you, will never cease to exist for you. It's going to always be there for you. Buy that, purchase that, which is going to be eternal, with what? Bima yazulu ankum, with that which is going to cease to exist that you have right now. Okay? I want to give an example, all right? And this is going to be a money-related example. And then I'm going to explain this part of the sermon. That in this world that we live in, of course, there's different governments and countries and states, right? And each of them, they have their own currencies, their own fiat, as they call it. Okay? Now, this currency, there was a time, for example, in America, that the dollar was backed by gold, they say. Yeah? But in the 1970s, they removed that backing of it. What's the big deal? Well, the big deal is, look at us now and the inflation that we're dealing with now. When something is not backed by a hard asset, they say, okay, you can inflate it, you can print more money, yeah, and that's what they've done. Trillions have been printed in the past couple of years because of COVID, because of other things. Yeah, we thought those stimulus checks were coming from heaven. No, they were being printed. And so that leads to inflation, and then economies get hurt because of that. Why am I saying all of this? There are some people who are smart. When that stimulus check comes, this guy knows how economies work. He knows how money works. What do they do with that money? They know that this is something that's kind of thin air. It's right now, it's not even backed by gold anymore. What's it backed by? It's backed by the confidence of different countries across the globe that this is the money of a very strong economy, the US dollar. And all the oil transactions are happening through the US dollar. That's about it. That's the only backing. That's why if that is shaken, yes, the true essence of this fiat, of this money, these dollar bills comes above, and we see it. That this is actually kind of like thin air. You can print more of it if you want. It's not based on anything that's a hard asset. Okay. What happens is, there are some people who are smart. You know what? They look at it like this. They say, okay, this is the money. This is the stimulus check, let's say. This is the hundreds of millions and trillions and billions that are coming in. Whatever reaches me of this money, I'm going to convert it into a hard asset. Right? Why? Because they know down the line, inflation is going to start attacking the economy. They're going to have no choice but to do what? To take measures to break the economy so that this dollar is spent more and more, and then the government can take it back from the people and get rid of it. Yeah? So we don't have this problem of too much dollars out there, let's say. What do? They flip it into something else. They convert it into, let's say, land. They'll go buy gold with it. They'll go buy real estate with it, homes with it, and so on. So while everyone else is having a good time spending their money on whatever it is that they want to have, these people are converting it into hard assets because that is what will persist and stay for them. Okay? Now, having said that, look at how the Imam words it here. The Imam, he says, I want you to purchase with something that really, it's something that is going to cease to exist. It's as if it's thin air. It's as if it's a mirage and doesn't exist, which is the life we have here. I'm not saying the life we have here is not real. The life we have here is real. But the fact that it's going to end one day makes it almost unreal. Makes it like a mirage. The Imam says, spend from what you have here, not the money, but your life itself, whether you're spending your time and energy on Salaat, on fasting, on going out to make a halal living, etc., etc., etc. Okay? You're spending from this life of yours. We're spending with this life of ours, which is something that is not backed by a hard asset, so to speak. We're spending it on something that will persist and never cease to exist. That's the akhirah. So he's letting us know that, look, you've been given something. You've been given a stimulus check, so to speak, by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This cash that you've been given is worth something, of course. But a time will come where it will debase and devalue. And if you were smart enough to, instead of going and upgrading your car, put it into something that will return yields to you in the future and will rise in price while that money is debasing in value later. If you're able to do that, you're going to be thankful later on. So Allah has given us this life of ours. And we are to convert this life of ours that really is kind of like based on thin air, because it is so fragile you lose it in a split second, to spend it on something that's never going to cease to exist. All these guys, like in the 2008 financial crisis, what happened? If you go listen to some of them, they're like, yeah, that was the best time of our lives. Everyone's dying here. What are you talking about? No. That's when everything went down in price. The little bit of money we had, we went and we bought. We bought properties, we bought this, we bought that, and then guess what? In 2023, those things have doubled, tripled, 10x, yeah? It's just the same way with our lives versus the akhirah. You spend from this life for the akhirah. Why? Because you're securing with something that is not backed by anything. You're spending it on something that is going to be with you forever, which is the akhirah. It's beautiful. بادروا آجالكم بأعمالكم وابتاعوا ما يبقى لكم بما يزول عنكم. That which is going to cease to exist. This guy spends money and cash on things to buy that he knows will remain at their price level, if not go up. Why? Because he knows if he holds on to cash, they say cash is trash. It will drop in price and value. Before you know it, the $1,000 that I was keeping now only has $500 of purchase power. Same exact thing I would say is happening here, the Imam is saying here. This is something that is slowly, this life of yours, as you're going closer and closer to your death, is debasing. Spend it on something that won't debase after you leave this life. وَتَرَحَّلُوا فَقَدْ جُدَّ بِكُمْ وَاسْتَعِدُّوا لِلْمَوْتِ فَقَدْ أَذَلَّكُمْ. Get ready for the journey, for you are being driven. Prepare yourselves for death, since it is hovering over you. Be a people who wake up when called. Now, this is not a good translation, because the Arabic says, وَكُونُوا قَوْمًا سِيحَ بِهِمْ فَانْتَبَهُ. Be of those people who, it's as if they've heard a call now. Once they hear the call, they wake up. Be awake and alert already. Don't wait for them to wake you up later with what? With death. Every single day that we wake up, some of these ulama, they would thank Allah. Every time they would wake up, they say, oh Allah, you gave me another chance. Okay? Here the Imam says, be like a people who they've been called and they're awake and alert now, ready to move. Don't be asleep. So once the train is actually moving, you wake up and the train is gone already. Yeah, that famous hadith that says, "An-nasu niyam," the people are asleep. فَإِذَا مَاتُوا intabahu. When they die, they wake up. And they see themselves in front of the akhirah. Oops. And this is why, once again, this is what's happened in the past few months for us. It's a big wake-up call for us that, wow, it doesn't matter what age we are. Yeah, I speak to myself. I don't know. I really don't know. It might knock on my door tomorrow or today even. But if I'm falling under this category, at least, all right, I don't have much to lose. It's very interesting because the Imam in another sermon or in another saying in Nahj al-Balagha, it says that he was passing after Battle of Siffin by a qabristan, by a graveyard. And he starts speaking to these dead. Not that they speak back to him and the people hear all of this. No, he's addressing them. He says, listen, and he's saying this most probably so that the people who are alive around him, take heed, wake up and are reminded of this truth of death. He says, O people of the graves, this happened. If you're asking about what happened to your wealth, well, guess what? It was inherited by others. What happened to your spouses? Well, they remarried. What happened to this? What happened to that? He kind of informs them of what has happened after they have left this dunya. And then this is the part that's interesting. It says that هَذَا خَبَرُ مَا عِنْدَنَا. He says to the dead, as those that are around Imam Ali are hearing, he says, this is what I have of news for you, O people of the graves. Now, do you want to tell me something? I gave you a khabar. Give me a khabar now. Yeah? هَذَا خَبَرُ مَا عِنْدَنَا فَمَا خَبَرُ مَا عِنْدَكُمْ. What is your khabar for me? Imam Ali says to them. And of course, they're not going to come out of the graves and respond necessarily in a way that others can hear. But the Imam himself, he says, ثُمَّ الْتَفَتَ إِلَىٰ أَصْحَابِهِ. He turned toward his companions, the Imam, and he said, أَمَا وَاللَّهِ, or it says here, أَمَا وَاللَّهِ لَوْ أُذِنَ لَهُمْ فِي الْكَلَامِ لَأَخْبَرُوكُمْ. If they were given permission to speak, they would give you all their khabar. What is their khabar? What news do they have for us? Right now, those of us whose loved ones have passed away, Allah give them patience, inshallah, those who are surviving those who have passed away. And may Allah bless and forgive the ones who have passed away. What would their news to us be? Let's say even a few days after they've passed away. The Imam says if they were able to speak or they were given permission to speak, لَأَخْبَرُوكُمْ, they would give you this one khabar. What is that one khabar? O Ali, Anna, and he takes a part of one of the verses of Quran and he uses that. He says, Anna khayra zad at-taqwa. That the best provision for that side is taqwa. How much were we obedient to Allah in this life? These are reminders. Amir al-Mu'mineen again and again and again is reminding us in Nahj al-Balagha, in special wording that I don't find anywhere else. Yeah. And so we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as I said, to bless and forgive and raise and elevate those who have passed away in these past few months, and of course all of our marhumin, and to give us and to maybe wake us up a little bit more to this reality that we are also headed towards that same destiny, and that we don't know when it's going to happen, but when it does happen, inshallah, we are ready for it. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Qul huwa Allahu ahad, Allahu samad, lam yalid wa lam yulad wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين أثني عليه حامدا وأذكره مسبحا لا إله إلا هو له الأسماء الحسنى والمثل الأعلى تبارك وتعالى ثم أصلي وأسلم على نجيبه وحبيبه وحافظ سره الذي سمي في السماء بأحمد وفي الأرضين بأبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل وسلم على علي أمير المؤمنين وعلى فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين وعلى سبطي نبي الرحمة وإمامي الهدى الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة اللهم صل وسلم على أئمة الهدى علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والخلف القائم المهدي حججك على عبادك وأمنائك في بلادك اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات عباد الله أوصيكم ونفسي بتقوى الله. Once again, I remind all of us of the importance of taqwa and obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. After we have the right beliefs, inshallah, we have the right actions to match those beliefs, that Allah is the one we listen to and only listen to, and that the best provision for the afterlife, if the dead were to speak to us, is the taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How much amal and how much obedience have you brought with you to the other side? Have I brought with me to the other side? In this second khutbah, I want to speak a little bit about one of the little observations I had on the month of Ramadan. I think, inshallah, the brothers and sisters appreciate that and understand what I'm trying to get to here. It's not too deep, but it's a little deeper than normal. It's not too deep, though. So we have different reasons, different hikmah, different wisdoms for the fast, of course. We've all heard some of the different reasons why the fast has been prescribed for us. I don't think we can say there's only one reason for it, one wisdom behind it. No, there is probably more than one wisdom, because our literature is pointing out different wisdoms for this fast. Now, in one of those hadiths, that famous sermon of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in that famous sermon, towards the end of Sha'ban and entering the month of Ramadan, he has one line. He also says in that sermon, وَذْكُرُوا بِجُوعِكُمْ وَعَطَشِكُمْ فِيهِ جُوعَ يَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ وَعَطَشَهِ. So we've all heard that, for example, the hadith will say Allah wants us to understand what those who are less fortunate are going through, for example. The Quran will say the fast was prescribed so that you have taqwa, and so on and so forth. This is also another one of them. I want to talk about this one a little bit and point out one little intricacy that we have in this line here. It says, the translation is, and remember, through your hunger and thirst within this month. Okay, so they're acknowledging that the hunger and thirst is going to come. Sometimes growing up, you think to yourself, couldn't God have said, the fast should begin from sunrise, not Fajr time at least. Like, oh Allah, cut us some slack here. From sunrise till sunset, for example, or Maghrib or whatever. But he said, no, from Fajr time. Like, if we could have that extra 1.5 hours, maybe it would be a little easier on us. No, like, it seems that Allah wants us to reach a point that we get hungry and thirsty. It's acknowledged here as well. That's part of the deal. Why? Well, the other literature I mentioned, but then we also have this here. The Holy Prophet, he says, that remember, through your thirst and hunger that you have in this month of Ramadan, remember the hunger and thirst of Yawmul Qiyamah. So it's not just the hunger and thirst of those who are less fortunate and are impoverished here. That's also something, so that you are more sympathetic towards them, you help them, etc. But other than that, you want to help yourself as well. Remember that you're going to be hungry and thirsty there. So this should be a reminder of that. But I want to talk about this a little bit. Now, the reason for this hunger and thirst on the other side is going to be different than the hunger and thirst here. When we get hungry and thirsty here, it's as if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when we're fasting, He's giving us a feel of what it's going to be like on the other side in this sense, that when I'm fasting in this life, can I get up and just grab something to, grab a bite of food right now if I want to? Yeah, after Jumma I'll go and I'll do it. So this is a prohibition by Allah though, but it's a tashri'i prohibition. Okay? Tashri'i. Meaning it's one of the do's and don'ts that He hasn't stripped me of my free will on it. He says, you have your free will, you make your decisions. I'm just letting you know, don't do this. Now, there are a lot of things that Allah tells us to not do, but we might do. But the problem with this one is that when you break one fast, you got to do 60 days instead. That's not worth it. Okay? Or 60 poor people. We were doing the math with my daughter in the car today on the way to school. That's about $9,000 right now for the whole month of Ramadan if I break my fast. Or for one day it's like $200-300. Wow. Okay. And by the way, it's not just I pay the money and I'm good. You have to go find 60 people and feed them actually. Or get someone else to do that. 60 people. If you find 59 people, it's not going to be enough. 60 people, so that makes it hard. All right. Now, here, what's holding me back from breaking my fast? If I'm not a very practicing person, but I understand, I'm smart. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do haram things that don't have a penalty and kafara. That's what's holding me back in this life, right? The kafara is holding me back. So, 2 hours left, 3 hours left till iftar time. I am so tempted, but of course, I'm not even going to think. It doesn't even cross my mind to break my fast. First of all, I've made it this far. Why do that? Second of all, that penalty though. Okay. So, I can, but I'm not. There's a brick wall in front of me called kafara and sin that doesn't allow me to do that. I'm talking about the bare minimum, brothers and sisters. Of course, some people, they're fasting because they want Allah's satisfaction. That's a different story. I'm talking about the bare minimum. Some of us might just not break it because there's a kafara there. All right. So this kafara is not letting me move forward anymore, right? And reach out and actually grab something to eat. Okay. So it's as if there's a brick wall there. In the akhirah, there's also a brick wall there. There's a brick wall there as well that doesn't allow us to eat or drink. And this brick wall is different than that brick wall. The brick wall here is that tashri'i command. That wajib command of Allah that He says, do this, don't do that. But I can, at the end of the day, go against what Allah tells me, right? In the akhirah, it's a takwini command. It's not a tashri'i command. It's not in the akhirah, Allah says, okay, hey, now that you're here, no eating and drinking, people. No, you can't eat or drink. It's not possible. Unlike here where it was possible. Over there, it's not possible. Allah draws a brick wall for us here. We get a taste of what these brick walls are like. On the other side, the real brick walls, which are takwini ones, are going to go up. And then we can't actually. So we're getting ready for that. But I want to share with you how this wall is torn down actually in the akhirah, inshallah. We'll get to that. But I just want to give you an example of tashri'i versus takwini very quickly. Tashri'i is if I tell somebody, hey, don't go outside. This person can get up and go if they want, or they can just not go. Sometimes I say, hey, you're not going outside, and I tie them up. Can they go out now? No. I told them you can't go outside anymore. But this really, they can't go outside not because they're not supposed to, but they can't. Physically, they can't. That's a takwini kind of command. It's just an example, okay? In the akhirah, it's not even possible. It's as if, they've tied us down and we can't even eat or drink. And we're going to get hungry. But having said all of that, brothers and sisters, the tashri' here, the do's and don'ts here, they play a role in the takween on the other side. We just have to align ourselves with Allah's will and tashri'i will here. If we align ourselves with that will of Allah here, that He's allowed us to go against. He's allowed us to go against His will. But if we align ourselves with that, the tashri'i will of Allah, the do's and don'ts of Allah, it's going to have a takweeni effect on the other side. Yeah, a lot of people are not going to be able to eat and drink there. But let's look at some of our literature, what it says, and we might come to the conclusion that, some people can eat or drink on the other side. The ones who aligned their selves with the tashri'i will in this life. They abided by the do's and don'ts of this life. They honored that brick wall that Allah had set in this life that they could easily have pushed over. Because Allah says, I built this wall in front of you, but you can easily just go ahead and do what you want still. Do you honor that or not? Or do you jump over it? Okay. So this is where I want to share with all of you a little bit of what we have in our literature that might seem to say that, it's not going to be the case that everyone is going to be suffering. But when the Prophet, he says, remind yourselves of that hunger and thirst, is the hunger of thirst there that is going to be the result of not listening to Allah here. This takwini versus tashri'i, let me give you an example of it before I move on actually. Remember I gave you the example of tying someone down and all of that? I want to give you some Quranic examples as well, okay? The difference between takwin and tashri'. On the Day of Judgment, Allah gives permission for certain things and doesn't give permission for certain things. We have two verses I want to share with you. It says, on the day when the Spirit and the angels stand in a row. يَوْمَ يَقُومُ. I don't want to misread the verse, so it kind of slipped my mind. I don't want to break my fast. All right, so the day that the angels and the Spirit, the Ruh, they stand in a line. يَوْمَ يَقُومُ الرُّوحُ وَالْمَلَائِكَةُ صَفًّا. That's the word. When they stand in a line, this is talking about Yawm al-Qiyamah, right? When they stand, none shall speak except whom the All-Beneficent permits. Allah doesn't give permission there for anyone to speak. Is it that if they wanted to speak, they could, but they just hold back? No, you can't speak. It's impossible. That's a takweeni permission and lack thereof in Yawm al-Qiyamah. Here, Allah says, do salat, and I think I'm a little Fir'aun, little puny Fir'aun for myself, and I think, you know what, I don't think I should be doing this. Yeah, you play in this little playground of this life. We'll see you on the other side when everything becomes takweeni. Okay, so this is an example. The permission there that's being granted is a takweeni one. Or for example, مَنْ ذَا الَّذِي يَشْفَعُ عِنْدَهُ إِلَّا بِإِذْنِهِ. That on that side, no one can do intercession and intercede for anyone except the one that Allah gives permission to. What kind of permission are we talking about here again? A takweeni one, not a tashri'i one. Okay, hey, you can't. Why'd you intercede for that person before I let you? Oh man, now they're going to Jannah too. No, that's not how it works. Permission when it's given there, it's all takweeni. That means till this point you can't say anything. From this point on, you can say something. Okay, so these are some Quranic examples for this. Now, having said all of that, let's get into that literature that I was talking about that kind of makes it sound like, no, there are certain things that will happen on the other side that are also takweeni that help us against that hunger, thirst, or anything else that might be happening on the other side that we fear when we hear about it here. Okay? So for example, and this is where the idea of, you know what, the fast that we do isn't a big deal. We have to do a lot of mustahabbat as well. The mustahabbat are awesome. The nights of Qadr are awesome, but we have to understand the fast in and of itself is something beautiful. It is one of the greatest forms of ibadah. Just like the Hajj. When you go to Hajj, some people ask, give me the amal of this part, give me the amal of that part. That's great, do amal. But guess what? The biggest amal of Hajj is the Hajj itself. And then we make it sound like, no, that's not very important, that we have to add to it. No, if a person just does the Hajj itself, it's beautiful, beautiful. Same thing with the fast. Now here it says, this hadith, famous hadith that I'll explain or I'll share with you. As-siyamu junnatun minan nar. When you go on that side, the fire burns whether we like it or not. But there's some who will have a shield. This isn't a normal kind of thing, it's a takwini shield. The fire cannot burn this person. Who is that? Well, the ones who fasted. The fast is a shield for that day. It's as if God knows what's coming to us on the other side. He wants us to be ready. He knows we make a lot of mistakes and mess ups in this life. I think of the fast like this, to be honest with you. That it's a detox, not a physical one, although they say it's a physical detox as well. But it's also a spiritual detox of 1 year of messing up probably for me, having a sloppy spiritual diet, so to speak. And then this Ramadan comes and it's a hard reset for me spiritually. The fast itself wipes out a lot of the mistakes that I've made. On the Day of Judgment, it's going to look like this. It's going to translate to what? A junnah, a protection, a shield, if you may, from the fire. This is takwini stuff, man. This isn't, now you're telling Allah, oh Allah, can you please tell the fire to go away from me and all that. No, I have a shield that Allah, of course, gave me. But this is doing work for me. This one's a beautiful one. I absolutely love this one because it has to do with food. It says, as lisa'imi farhatan, the famous hadith, some of you probably heard it, that the one who's fasting has two joys, two farhas, okay? Two happinesses. What are they? Number one, farhatun inda iftarihi. Right? One of those joys and happinesses is at iftar time. Do I need to explain that? I don't need to explain that. You just look at me at iftar time, you'll say, oh, that's the joy he was talking about. Look at that. The smile, nothing can wipe that smile off his face. Yeah, you give me that pakora. Fried nothingness, I call it. Okay. That's the first joy that we all can relate to. And I like how this hadith uses this relatable joy that we have. Why? Because it wants to illustrate to us the other joy and how awesome it is for us on the other side. This takwini joy of the other side. وَفَرْحَةٌ عِنْدَ لِقَاءِ رَبِّهِ. And a happiness and joy when he or she meets the Lord. Wow. So, you tell me, brothers and sisters, when the Prophet ﷺ, he says, وَاذْكُرُوا فِيهِ or وَاذْكُرُوا بِجُوعِكُمْ وَعَطَشِكُمْ فِيهِ جُوعَ يَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ. Remind yourselves of the hunger and thirst on that side. Does that mean everyone's going to go through hunger and thirst? Or remind yourself of the potential hunger and thirst you're going to suffer from on that side? It seems it's the second. Why? Because this hadith here is telling us the same joy you have at iftar time, you're going to have when you meet your Lord. Am I going to have that joy if I'm hungry and thirsty? Does it make sense? Does it add up? It doesn't add up. And so this is a conclusion that one can draw that, wow, the fast is actively doing stuff for us on the other side. This next one. Yes, it says, and this one shows that on the other side, who this hunger or thirst is going to be for actually. If the ones who actually lived up to and fulfilled the commands of Allah, and hunger and thirst is not for them because they have a farha, that they have at iftar time, something like that when they meet Allah, then who does have that hunger and thirst? Surah A'raf verse 50. وَنَادَى أَصْحَابُ النَّارِ أَصْحَابَ الْجَنَّةِ أَنْ أَفِيدُوا عَلَيْنَا مِنَ الْمَاءِ أَوْ مِمَّا رَزَقَكُمُ اللَّهِ. This is one of those that sends shivers down one's spine, that the inhabitants of nar, of the hellfire, they call out to the inhabitants of Jannah. Which here there is an interesting discussion of, wow, we can actually communicate with the people of the hellfire when we're in Jannah? And the answer according to this is yes. Now, is that going to be throughout all of Jannah, or is it towards the beginning and all of that? That's something to talk about. Give us water, or that which your Lord has given you rizq of, the sustenance that Allah has given you, the food and drink that you might have. So they are eating and drinking, they're fine. Okay? There are some though that are deprived from this, from a takwini perspective. They can't, even if they were given the water and the food, they can't eat it. They can't. They don't have what it takes. You know what it's like? It's like a baby who was not weaned off of mommy's milk in the right time, and now they want to give it solid food and it just can't digest it, it throws it up. This is a takwini problem this child has. It's not like, hey child, we all have to deal with this problem. Our children don't eat, we bring them, we force them to eat. They can eat, they just don't want to, right? No, this is a child that cannot digest the food because it's not ready, its digestive system is not ready. These people on the Day of Judgment, even if they are given the food and drink of Qiyamah, they can't digest it. And so that's why the verse goes on. It's a beautiful verse. It says, قَالُوا, the people of Jannah will respond to these people of Jahannam who are asking, give us some water. Give us some of the rizq that your Lord has given you. That's the answer. إِنَّ اللَّهَ حَرَّمَهُمَا عَلَى الْكَافِرِينَ. The answer that they're given is not that we don't want to give it to you, but these have been made haram on the kafirin in Yawm al-Qiyamah. Not haram, tashri'i haram, do's and don'ts here. Allah says, make sure you don't give them water and drink. No, they can't have it. This haram in the Yawm al-Qiyamah is different than haram here. If we honor the harams here, honor and observe the harams and halals here, then over there, we're not going to be an example of Inna Allah harramahuma. This is takwini hurmat in Yawm al-Qiyamah. Allah says, I wanted you to prepare for this day. I wanted you to have the right faculties, the right organs that will digest all of what I'm going to give you here, but you didn't do the work 50, 60, 70, 100 years I gave you. You didn't work on yourself, and then now you're like, give it all to me, I'm ready for it. You're not ready for it. Yes, brothers and sisters. So, if we line up and align what we do in this life with what Allah wants, it'll fix the takwini matters on the other side. I'll end with this verse because all of these discussions reminded me of another verse as well. That on that day, it says, Yawma, Surah Qalam verses 42, 43, Yawma yukshafu an saqin, which they say is an expression which means when stuff is getting really hard, when the going is really getting tough on the Day of Judgment, okay? وَيُدْعَوْنَ إِلَى السُّجُودِ, and they're telling these people on the Day of Judgment to come and do sajda, Yawm al-Qiyamah. Now what this sajda exactly is it the sajda we used to do in this life? There's discussion there. Whatever that sajda entails, okay, and looks like. But it says on the Day of Judgment, they will be called to do sajda, but they don't do sajda. They can't. فَلَا يَسْتَطِيعُونَ. They can't. From a takwini perspective, they can't. They didn't do sajda here and align themselves with Allah's tashri'i will here of them to do sajda. On the other side, they can't do sajda. Takwinan, they can't. They can't. It's as if they can't bend down anymore, so to speak. فَلَا يَسْتَطِيعُونَ خَاشِعَةً أَبْصَارُهُمْ تَرْهَقُهُمْ ذِلَّةً. And this is the important part. وَقَدْ كَانُوا يُدْعَوْنَ إِلَى السُّجُودِ وَهُمْ سَالِمُونَ. That with a humbled look in their eyes. So, hey, come, do sajda. This person, when you've done something wrong and you put your head down and you're in the most miserable of states when they catch you, kind of like that. It says on that day, with a humbled look in their eyes, they will be overcast by zillat and abasement and belittlement. What's the problem? Certainly, they were summoned to prostrate, before in the dunya. وَهُمْ سَالِمُونَ. While they were sound and able to. They were able to, but they didn't do sajda there. They didn't align themselves with that tashri'i command of Allah for salat, for sajda to Allah. They didn't align themselves with the tashri'i will of Allah. On the Day of Judgment, they have to pay the price in a takwini way, and that's the worst of them all. We seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to take this fast of ours and turn it into whatever it's supposed to turn into for Yawm al-Qiyamah, and to help us in the best of ways and so that we can maximize on it. We also ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as I said in the first khutbah, to forgive and bless and elevate those who have passed away from amongst us, young and old, and that we are also ready for our day when it comes, inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wal asr, inna al-insana lafi khusr, illa alladhina amanu wa amilu as-salihat, wa tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr. Sadaqallahu al-aliyyu al-azim. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله أشهد أن عليا ولي الله وأنه حجة الله صلوات الله وسلامه عليه. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يسبح لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض الملك القدوس العزيز الحكيم. هو الذي بعث في الأميين رسولا منهم يتلو عليهم آياته ويزكيهم ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة وإن كانوا من قبل لفي ضلال مبين وآخرين منهم لما يلحقوا بهم وهو العزيز الحكيم. ذلك فضل الله يؤتيه من يشاء والله ذو الفضل العظيم. مثل الذين حملوا التوراة ثم لم يحملوها كمثل الحمار يحمل أسفارا بئس مثل القوم الذين كذبوا بآيات الله والله لا يهدي القوم الظالمين. قل يا أيها الذين هادوا إن زعمتم أنكم أولياء لله من دون الناس فتمنوا الموت إن كنتم صادقين ولا يتمنونه أبدا بما قدمت أيديهم والله عليم بالظالمين. قل إن الموت الذي تفرون منه فإنه ملاقيكم ثم تردون إلى عالم الغيب والشهادة فينبئكم بما كنتم تعملون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا نودي للصلاة من يوم الجمعة فاسعوا إلى ذكر الله وذروا البيع ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون. فإذا قضيت الصلاة فانتشروا في الأرض وابتغوا من فضل الله واذكروا الله كثيرا لعلكم تفلحون. وإذا رأوا تجارة أو لهوا انفضوا إليها وتركوك قائما قل ما عند الله خير من اللهو ومن التجارة والله خير الرازقين. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. كذلك الله ربي. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر.
إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. لا إله إلا الله. لا إله إلا الله. لا إله إلا الله. سلام عليكم.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. لا إله إلا الله العظيم الحليم. لا إله إلا الله رب العرش الكريم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم إني أسألك موجبات رحمتك وعزائم مغفرتك والغنيمة من كل بر والسلامة من كل إثم. اللهم لا تدع لي ذنبا إلا غفرته ولا هما إلا فرجته ولا سقما إلا شفيته ولا عيبا إلا سترته ولا رزقا إلا بسطته ولا خوفا إلا آمنته ولا سوءا إلا صرفته ولا حاجة هي لك رضا ولي فيها صلاح إلا قضيتها يا أرحم الراحمين آمين رب العالمين وصل اللهم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين.
Amin, just a few reminders regarding upcoming programs and events this Ramadan. Um, we have a few Dallas Youth events coming up. April 5th, it's the DYG and ABSA Iftar interactive session. April 7th, we have the Sisters Lock-In at the Dallas Youth Group Lounge. April 15th, here at CFK. After Dua Iftitah, we will have a moon sighting workshop with Sheikh Amin Rastani. We also have a Sisters Iftar at the Dallas Youth Lounge on April 18th. And then starting next week, we will be having programs all the way through the week for next week. So programs will start next Thursday and then continue on through the next week due to the nights of Qadr that will fall into the week after. As always, I know I breezed through the announcements. All of our event details are on our website and are posted on our WhatsApp group. Please visit cfkdfw.org if you want to catch up on the schedules, and there you can also get a link to the calendars for CFK events that can automatically update on your smart devices. We also have the sponsorship page on our webpage where you can sponsor Nights of Ramadan, and your generosity is inshallah appreciated. Another program that is being done by the Sunday school is CFK's Islamic text disposal. This box will be available on Saturday, April 1st here at CFK, where you can come in and let them have your Islamic and religious texts, and they will be managing the disposal of those texts in an Islamic way. Another reminder that the CFK 2023 Iftar Assistance Program is underway, and tonight is the last night to register for it. Just a little background, during the month of Ramadan, City of Knowledge provides iftar assistance to members of our community that are in need. So if you know anybody who can take advantage of this program, please forward this information to them so that they can register. There is a form that they will need to fill out, and the applications are accepted through the end of tonight. Please, as always, if you have any questions regarding any of the announcements that I've made or any of the programs, please feel free to reach out to any of the volunteers or myself. And I would like to say Jazakallah to all of our members, donors, and volunteers, and program sponsors for your contributions, financial and in time. I would like to request everybody to please recite a Surah Fatiha. For Marhuma Rubab Raza, daughter of Asad Raza, Marhum Mukhtar Ali Makhraj, Marhuma Rubab Banu bint Haji Nanji, Marhum Khurram Raza Ali, Marhum Muhammad Jafar, Marhum Shabab Ali Ghulam Hussain, the Marhumin of Brother Sadiq Makhraj and family, and let us please include our Marhumin and the Marhumin of the Ummah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله أشهد أن عليا ولي الله وأنه حجة الله صلوات الله وسلامه عليه حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الله أكبر بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الله أكبر سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر أستغفر الله الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم كذلك الله ربي الله أكبر اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار الله أكبر سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر أستغفر الله الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر الحمد لله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سبحان الله. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر.
إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. لا إله إلا الله. لا إله إلا الله. لا إله إلا الله. تسبيح فاطمة الزهراء سلام الله عليها.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. ما شاء الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ما شاء الله لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. Inshallah recite dua ibadat all together. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لا إله إلا الله إلها واحدا ونحن له مسلمون. لا إله إلا الله ولا نعبد إلا إياه مخلصين له الدين ولو كره المشركون. لا إله إلا الله ربنا ورب آبائنا الأولين. لا إله إلا الله وحده وحده أنجز وعده عبده وعزى جنده وهزم الأحزاب وحده. وله الملك وله الحمد يحيي ويميت ويميت ويحيي وهو حي لا يموت بيده الخير